All right, let's bring on our next guest. He's a Canadian conservative political activist and commentator, author, and founder of Rebel News Network. Please welcome on Ezra Levant. Ezra.
I feel like I'm in grave danger right now. I feel like I've been signed up for something that I'm unqualified for, and I'm genuinely scared.
Yeah, and that's probably a good feeling because honestly, my producer just paid a professional wrestler to come in here and throw a trash can on me, and now I feel like I might have a punctured lung or some sort of vertebrae injury. But
I was told I was going to be talking to Don Terrius, and I don't see him. I feel like
Ezra, don't leave.
I feel like it was a bait and switch.
It was. We told you Donnie was going to be here, and Don Terrius, he had a parole violation, and we can't get him out of jail because he accidentally sleeping with one of the prison guards. So it's like this long thing. Yes. I don't know why all these women sleep with him.
I heard you were visiting him in the conjugal trailer, and that was a very non-standard meeting, but you threatened them with some transgender litigation, and they just said, just let him in.
Exactly, and I'm trans, so I'm allowed to go in as his wife. So they try to stop me. They say, oh, you have male genitalia. Well, so what? I'm a female. So, Ezra, let's talk about that. Justin Trudeau, Canada. Oh, and we had the fabulous Ian Crossan on. Ian, say hi to Ezra. I know you're very familiar with him from Timcast. But I'm telling you, tell us about the current.
Great to see you again.
Tell us the current state of affairs in Canada right now. I mean, isn't it kind of dystopic that, every single person that parked their car in Canada now is on some sort of list and they go and take all their cryptocurrency? I mean, it's almost kind of like a dystopian nightmare.
To get serious for a minute, what you're saying is actually true. When you think about what did the truckers do? There was no violence at all. They didn't riot. They didn't have any firearms. They just honked their horns and they parked on the street past the time limit for parking. They literally committed no crime other than a parking violation. And in fact, when a judge ordered them to stop honking, they stopped honking. Imagine a tyrant who would throw a country under martial law for that. And you mentioned seizing their bank accounts and seizing crypto accounts. On what basis? How did they come up with the list of the first 200 people on the list? They just Googled different names of people they saw in the media. There wasn't even a police investigation. It was whoever the media said was out there. They contacted the banks and said, seize their account. There was no legal process. I mean, you'd think, I wish there was a funny angle to it, but it's not. That really happened in Canada. I mean, that's not far away in Venezuela or someplace like that. That's your neighbors to the north.
No, and let's be honest. I mean, this sounds kind of anecdotal, but everybody in Canada is supposedly nice. But now I get the vibe that people in Canada are kind of mean. Is the I guess how we kind of have the Americanized version of Canada, or kind of like the South Park version. We think everybody's Canadian and funny and goofy, and some of the best comedians are from Canada. But now I don't feel like they're as lighthearted anymore. It seems like Canada is not the comedy happy mecca that it kind of used to give off the impression of being.
I've had the pleasure of traveling to a lot of different places in America, and I think Americans are among the friendliest people in the world.
Oh, wow.
They just are, especially different regions. I mean, the South, they're famous for the hospitality, for example. Canadians have always had a self-righteousness. Oh, we're nicer than Americans. We're better than Americans. I think that's a smugness, not niceness. And I think the mask fell a little bit. I'm not saying Canadians aren't nice people. There's a lot of nice Canadians. But the mask fell a bit. It slipped, and we saw the true nature. It's a kind of gaslighting. Here's what I mean. Justin Trudeau said he's a civil libertarian. He's the Liberal Party, after all.
Yeah.
But he brought in martial law that we didn't even use during 9/11. Trudeau says he's a male feminist, but he admitted he sexually assaulted a woman named Rose Knight in Creston, BC. Trudeau says he's, for harmony between the races, and he'll call you racist, but he dressed up in blackface so often, he said he lost count of how many times. And that wasn't just something he did as a teenager. He did it in his teens, his 20s, and his 30s. Like it was his go-to gag. He had like a tickle trunk with the gear in there. Like he did blackface so often, he had like a kit that he would bring out for special occasions. So he's the master of gaslighting. So that goes to your point. Are Canadians nice? Well, Trudeau pretends he's nice and polite company, but underneath it, he's a bit of a bully.
Yeah, and you made a really good point though when you talk about Justin Trudeau. How weird is that? I mean, listen, we like to play around, put on costumes to do a skit or something, but the fact that he actually talks about that he had all these costumes, he was like a costumier almost. Wasn't that part of his excuses that he just loved? He's like, I just love to play dress up and wear costumes. Like that's just very. And I'm an odd person, so I can call an odd person an oddball because I'm so peculiar. He is an oddball. And like I said, I don't even care about the freaking, the blackface. I know he was doing it probably not in a racist way, but now it is a racist. It's kind of like this weird thing is I don't want to like demonize him and give him cancel culture for that, even though he would do it to another person if they wore blackface. Okay, let's talk about this. Now let's get another serious topic because we only have you for a short time. What about all of these? We talk about all of these Native Americans, and I don't know, this is probably a very conspiratorial thing where they say that there's hundreds of thousands, there's been different numbers of these children that were at these, what kind of schools were they called? I forget what they were called, but they're like a boarding school.
Yeah, I mean, they were Native Indians, or as they're now called, indigenous people, and just like in the United States. And so over 100 years ago, they set up these residential schools where they would take these Aboriginal kids and put them in school, teach them English, teach them modern skills. The boys were taught farming and ranching and things like that, and the girls were taught sewing and gardening and things like that. It was really skills training, but there was a racial hue to it. Like one of the architects said, we want to get the Indian out of these kids. So it was a
sounds like eugenics.
Take these indigenous kids and make them more British, I guess. Now, I happen to know two people who went to these schools because they were only shut down about 30 years ago. One of them is a senior lawyer, and he says to me, Ezra, if I didn't go to that residential school, there was no way I would be who I am today. It taught me the Western way. Wow. He loved it. And I talked to another guy, his whole family went there, and one of the accusations is that these kids were sexually assaulted. I think that happened at any boarding school.
Yep.
This second guy I know who he said no one in his family ever heard of that. So I'm not defending these, but I'm saying there are a lot of indigenous kids for whom these were good things, and their families, some of the families wanted their kids to go there. Now other families, they said it was like their kids were kidnapped. So I'm not here to condemn them or to praise them. I'm just saying different kids had different experiences there. These schools were shut down. That's probably a good thing. But I don't think it's right just to call them all this racist institution that destroyed kids. I don't think it did destroy all those kids.
And Ezra, let me get your opinion on this. You see libs of TikTok when you see all these teachers are basically sorry, excuse me, I got a little fentanyl in my throat. They're basically like open child groomers now. So I imagine that sounds crazy. They were probably grooming children back in the day. And I know that sounds crazy, but that happens at a big Christian camp here in Texas called Kanakuk. So I'm just saying predators are opportunistic. So that's why they sometimes will go into teaching. So one of these schools could have been bad. There could have been a predator there, but to call them all bad is probably not accurate.
I think the reason why these schools are so condemned these days is because they had an express purpose of take these indigenous kids and westernize them and give them a culture that was not native to them. And I can see that people would find that colonialistic. And I'm not here to say they didn't do that. But I think, again, in this one lawyer, I'm not going to say his name, he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him and he would have been lost without it. I don't know. It was a different time, and we can condemn those folks and knock down the statues of, like, the founder of Canada, John A. Macdonald. They're tearing down his statue. That would be like tearing down the statue of George Washington. I think it's coming. I mean, if these folks had slaves, if they didn't use politically correct language, they're going to be deracinated. They're going to be obliterated from history. You know, there was something that the old Roman emperors did. If there was someone that they hated so deeply, they would destroy any busts of them. They would destroy any mosaics of them. It was called damnatio memoriae, to condemn the memory of people and try and erase them completely from history. And obviously we don't know if it worked, because if it worked, we wouldn't know someone was erased from history. I'm worried that we're doing like what the Taliban did, destroying those statues. We are destroying anyone and anything from the past that's not exquisitely politically correct by today's standards.
It's literally like George Orwell in 1984, where they got rid of everything. I mean, that's come to life. Okay, last question. So, I think the government or the people that are in power, they use predictive programming. I almost think that Canada is probably the global leader, even though America is the leader in globalism, quote unquote, because I guess we're probably one of the most powerful countries. But I think that the beta program for the New World Order is being tested in Canada now. So what do you think about the New World Order?
I think Canada is deep into the World Economic Forum, for example. Our Deputy Prime Minister is a trustee on the Board of Governors of the World Economic Forum. Her name's Chrystia Freeland. Her job before becoming an MP, she was George Soros's authorized biographer. Trudeau's first big foreign visit was to the World Economic Forum where he met Soros. I mean, these are not rumors. This is who he is. He's like Jacinda Ardern, the ex-New Zealand PM. Canada is like a laboratory of bad ideas that Americans should take as a cautionary tale, whether it's censorship, carbon taxes, globalism, gun control, you name it. Look to Canada as a warning, not as a manual, but as what to learn from to save yourselves.
Wow, you know, that's pretty deep. I know this is a dumb show, but we learned a lot. We learned about those bus. Say that again, where they kill the, or when they destroy all the bus. What's that called again? I want to remember that one.
Damnatio memoriae. It's a Latin word for obliterating your enemies from history. It would be like taking every picture of Obama or Clinton and just every photo has to be destroyed, every statue has to be destroyed, every law they ever passed has to be repealed to remove the memory, to damn the memory. That's the literal translation. That's what they're trying to do. That's cancel culture in its original sense. Damn the memory of people you don't like.
The original cancel culture. Okay, so Ezra, great job with Rebel News. Everybody go and support Rebel News. They're one of the best independent media companies out there. They speak the truth. Everything they're reporting on COVID and the lockdowns and the pandemic really made me a diehard, lifelong fan. So Ezra, keep up the good work. And before you go, tell the people how they can support you and find you.
Well, go to rebelnews.com, poke around. If you like what you see, you can sign up for our premium shows or chip into some of our campaigns. We're always crowdfunding a battle, usually involving free speech. So thanks for asking me that.
You're the man, Ezra. I'll talk to you soon. Keep up the good work. And thank you for being a good sport and coming on.
I love you, Ezra.
My pleasure.
Ian loves you. Say goodbye. Sorry, I never ever let my in-studio guests ask questions. It's too awkward. But tomorrow it's just Ian. But
what is your favorite color?
Yeah, what's your favorite? Oh, here. I actually have this. Let me ask you a riddle, okay? What is always in front of you but can't be seen?
Always in front of you but can't be seen. I don't know. That's too tricky for me.
The future. Oh! Yeah, I know. It's a dumb riddle. Okay, Ezra, you're too smart for this show. You're the man.
You just blew my mind, sir.
Ah! All right. Talk to you soon, my friend. Have a good one.